Hello, pickleball friends. Welcome back to another week of Inside Major League Pickleball. Michelle McMahon with you, as always. Tyson Apostle, the godfather of pickleball podcasting.
Close enough.
I have a British accent now, doing all this tennis. Trendsetter in the sport, Tyson MLP Season 2 draft completed a week ago from New York City. I don't know about you, but I was very surprised by a lot of the decisions made, many twists and turns. What did you think? Who do you
Same.
think
Yeah.
won the draft or
I
didn't win the
mean,
draft?
who won the draft? I mean, obviously, first pick with Ben Johns has to be feeling very, very good. Chicago slice there. And then also, like, you pick Ben Johns, he pretty much probably picks the rest of the team for you. Like, that's what you're getting with a Ben Johns. And you're not getting that with a lot of other players. They have
Yeah.
some input and who can work with them and stuff. But I think that definitely Chicago slice, one of the biggest winners. And I don't want to give away too much, but our upcoming guest was one of the biggest movers and shakers of the entire draft,
Mm-hmm.
trading all four of their picks for different picks
Yep.
and
An
building the
unknown
team.
entity.
Unknown entity, a somebody who probably a steal in the third, and some jostling early on. So I think that yeah, I'm interested to pick their brain and see what they think. But yeah, really exciting, and I cannot wait for the first event in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's going to be super fun. I have to say, for me, the Utah Black Diamonds won the draft. Annalie Waters,
Yep.
Irina the GOAT.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Ben made some interesting choices. I did not expect Eric Lang to be his men's doubles partner,
Yeah.
and Jesse and Lacey were um, the team construction was interesting to me. So
Yeah. Do you think he
that's
did that as a personal challenge to himself?
yeah, it almost seems like it. I mean, the guy can win with anybody, but then you bring it to a dream breaker. I don't know. Ben only plays 4 points every what
Every
say every
16?
16 points. Thank
Yeah.
you, mathematician.
Yeah.
So
Ta-da.
that's very interesting to me. I think Annalie Waters, Connor Pardo, Black Diamonds. Then they got Thomas. You know I love Thomas. And
Yep.
then AJ, his cousin. He's missing apparently one of the days, AJ. But I think getting Thomas in the third round is a steal, and people
Yeah.
forget how good he is at singles. So then you have the Dream Breaker take. You already automatically have women's doubles in the bag, no matter what. Then Irina's so strong in mixed, so is AL.
Hmm.
So that's one women's doubles and then two mixed. I mean, I guess people argue that AJ is the most inconsistent, but I
But
don't
he's also paired
know.
with this cousin, which they have
Exactly. He
chemistry.
can
Like they
reel
started
them
playing
in.
pickleball together, kind of.
Hmm.
So,
So that's who
yeah.
won it for me. I think last season was all Seattle Pioneers. I think it's AL's
Hmm.
time to shine. We'll see if that holds true.
Ooh, interesting
Um,
take. I like it.
yeah, but
I
before
support
we,
it.
okay,
Yeah, you
good.
convinced me. Like I'm Utah trained too now.
I'm so glad. Thank you for your support,
Yeah.
Tyson. The Godfather of Pickleball is on my side, everybody.
Well, I
Woohoo!
wish I would have come up with it. Like I'm jealous that like you had that take and I didn't have that take.
I'm so sorry. I should have
That's
read it. I
okay.
wrote it in my prep
You should
notes so
have
we could have
texted
both
it to
had the
me and then
same take.
or I steal it from you. I'm like, actually, I think I came up with this on my own.
You can
Yeah.
steal it now. Just go on another podcast and then
Okay.
say like it's your
Perfect.
take.
Perfect.
Okay, well, you mentioned it. We've got one of the premier level owners coming up on the show, and he did not go with Riley Newman despite having the chance to at the number 3 slot. We'll get into all that, but you need to listen to this episode because it's fascinating. Again, risky choices in the fourth
Hmm.
round, but Tyson and I both think it's going to pay off. It's an interesting conversation. Before we get to it, though, we'd like to thank our partners, Margaritaville, Michelob Ultra, Cirkul, Toyota Prius, Dulce, Vida, Tequila, Hospital for Special Surgery, Sunday Swagger, and Fromouth Pickleball. Visit the MLP online store at Fromouth Pickleball to buy your MLP and MLP team gear. Speaking of which, really good team gear to buy with our upcoming guest. All right, time now to bring in our guest, owner and general manager of the Orlando Squeeze. He's a sports executive by trade, also owns the Orlando Magic. And the DeVos family has operated some of the most successful enterprises in the U.S., and we're thrilled to be joined now by Ryan DeVos. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us. Well, you guys shook the MLP draft with some of your choices. So we're here to break down all of it. Let's begin with the pick of Anna Bright. That was clearly the player that you were selecting to
Yep.
build your team around, right? So you went with the strategy of female first. You traded with DC for you gave them the third pick, you got the 5 pick. Anna Bright was the first selection. Let's start there. Why was that the choice for you to build your team around?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to chatting with you both a little bit. No, it's a great question. And, frankly, we had conversations with, I think ultimately everybody who went in the top 8. We chatted with, well, except Ben. We didn't talk with Ben. We had conversations with all of those players because, we were somewhat undecided right up until the last minute. I think the beauty of the MLP is there's a lot of really top talent players playing in this format, and so we could just and ultimately could have gone in a number of different directions. As we kind of looked at our calculation, both just watching matches from the first portion of the season and diving in on more of the stats, we decided female first because I think there's more of a drop off from the top, call it 3, maybe 4 females in terms of actual play ability. There's more of a drop off from that group down to the next tier of female than ultimately I would say from the top group of males. Top group of males probably not named Ben. It's a narrower gap. So ultimately
Yeah.
we decided, diving in with a female first, securing that because female play is equally as important in this, in my estimation. Our females are playing half of the matches and are just as much of an integral part of the team as our male counterparts. So, that's ultimately what we decided. I also think in this format, chemistry, team cohesion, leadership ability, and kind of, if you can have a group that's really gelling, that's going to be, serve you a lot better than a group that maybe is a tiny bit more talented, but just doesn't get along. They're not there playing for each other. So as I kind of look to build out a team, that's what I look for. And ultimately, I think through all of our interviews, Anna stood out, as a true leader, as a, really great both leader on the court, but then also on the bench, staying engaged with her teammates, helping to hype them up, keeping them in the match. I think that goes a really long way in this format.
So you said that you did it kind of spur of the moment, all of this materialized, because I'm looking at it and I was shocked too. Like I see that switch, I see it came with a later switch from you got the 20th pick in the second round versus 22nd. And I'm thinking in my mind as I'm looking at it, they wanted Anna. So at this point, you want Anna. You've talked to the teams in front of you. You assume that nobody's going to take Anna before even that 5th spot. So why not bump up a little bit in this? Was that part of the thinking in that, or am I misreading that?
Very much so. No, very much so. I mean, we were prepared to take her with the 3rd pick, and we had conversations with 4th, 5th, 6th picks, and kind of just as I was assessing risk reward versus dropping, potentially one farther back, my concern is that she was going to go before. So then my calculation is it's only a few additional, a few picks that you'd be moving up in the second round. In my opinion, worth getting the person that we want, and rolling the dice on who's available there in the second round. But ultimately, I think as I kind of looked at realistically who the teams when we were picking 3rd, directly behind us, we're going to be picking. Felt good about moving back to 5 and being able to move up a little bit in the second round. So, yeah, I mean, we were ready to pick her at 3.
Have you caught any flack for not picking Riley Newman in that 3 spot? Because there are so many teams that were drooling over Riley as the 3rd pick, Riley as the 3rd pick. So you're saying you would go Anna Bright either way, which your strategy totally makes sense. And how do you justify that though, to taking Anna over a Riley Newman? pick, despite the fact that females are obviously half of it. It's still a
Yeah,
shocking.
it is. And I think had we stayed at third and picked her over Riley, I think there'd be probably more of an uproar, but we were able to get some value there. Um, as I kind of looked at it, we chatted with Riley. I've not really interacted with him much in person. Seems like a nice guy. I think I felt strongly in having a strong female leader and kind of on the court and helping to put the team together. I think as we kind of looked at the teams that were successful, again, we'll take the player named Ben and the Sounders or the Pioneers rather, out of the equation. All the top teams were ultimately led by first round female picks. Um, you know, Riley and JW and their teams, they struggled. And again, I credit that somewhat to the drop off in female talent and having to pick up females later on in the draft. I just
It's a good
felt
point.
strongly about it from a positioning standpoint.
So you make this swap. Are you nervous at all that somebody's going to scoop Anna before you? Like, did you have a plan B, or was it just like, was it pretty so certain that you didn't need to worry that much? Like, I don't know, like the
No,
conversations fully with between the owners.
yeah, I made it knowing she was going to be there at five.
Yeah. And there was no
Yeah,
doubt.
there was no doubt. No,
Okay.
there was no doubt that she was going to be there at five.
Okay.
Now ultimately the conversations with DC all along when I was looking at where I wanted to be in the draft, with this strategy in mind, DC was the team where I wanted to be. I wanted to be at five. Seemed like good value for picking Anna. Far enough up in the second round that or at least, not too far back, that we could still get a really solid man to pair with her and to kind of lead the men's side of the team. So DC was where I kind of pegged at. This is where I'd love to be. We had conversations with 4 and 6, and tried to solicit some conversations with DC about 3, 4, 5 days out from the draft. They were happy standing pat, and literally the morning of, they came calling and asked about this trade. So yeah, I mean, knowing that they were not going to be taking her, uh, felt pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay. So
What about
they, oh,
no,
so
Sargon?
no, so you talked about this with DC in advance. They said probably not, and then morning of, they were like, "We're going to do it."
Yeah, they said that they were comfortable with where they were picking, and kind of felt that they and they were feeling, I think, a lot of what I was feeling too, of however 1, 2, 3, 4 play out, going to end up with, at least in our calculation, I knew I was going to end up with one of the top 3 females picking at five.
Yeah.
So I think they were having a similar calculation conversation on their side.
So what about then moving on to the second round pick? How did you approach you obviously went guy there. Did you have Andre selected? Andre Dascu, for those listening and don't know the team, it's Andre and Zayn, Rachel Rohrbacher. We'll get to the others in a moment. But with Andre, did you have a list of like, okay, here's who we think, here's who we want, and then build a list on ongoing based on who's available? How did you approach that strategically?
Yeah, I mean, we tiered both men and women based on kind of where we felt they fell in terms of both PPA or APP performance, obviously MLP performance, just kind of our thoughts from a statistics standpoint and just watching their games. We tiered everybody in the draft, and we're just kind of able to tick down the lists as players were picked before us. So that made it easier. We at least knew we had a grouping of 3, 4 names that we'd be comfortable with from our side. The next calculation is then, who does Anna want to play with?
Yeah.
And so, we as soon as we picked Anna, got her on the phone, kind of chatted through our strategy a little bit more, and got her support in that. And then as soon as we were, a pick or two before where we were going to be picking again at 20, got her back on the line, knowing and understanding, at least one of these 2, 3 guys will be there when we're picking. What would be your preference? And ultimately landed on Andre.
So between those two picks, are they who you wanted? Like, is this what you envisioned when you made the pick selection trade initially?
Very much so. Yeah, very
Okay.
much so. I think we had Andre targeted as a guy who we felt not 100% sure, but felt pretty comfortable would be there with our second pick, whether that was at 22 or, 21 or 20, whatever it ended up being.
Yeah.
We felt pretty comfortable in that. Obviously, there was players taken before that I was somewhat surprised by. But, ultimately we had a grouping of a few names that we felt comfortable with. Andre was one that I was excited about. I mean, from everything I've heard, just a very even-keeled guy, strong leader, based in Florida, which is always helpful. Be able to pull, both Anna and Andre up, whether it's events in Orlando or even just getting the team together. I think there's a lot of power in pulling our group of 4 together to get out there, do some more training, get some time together on the court, which, unfortunately they just don't have a lot of time to be able to do that because of all of their rigorous, tournament schedules all over the country. So I really liked that angle, and Anna and Andre know each other well, very close physically, from a location standpoint. So they're able to get out and train down in South Florida as well, which is great.
Did Anna, how much weight did Anna carry in these decisions, like with Andre, with Zayn, with Rachel? Because you said like you wanted that strong female leader. Is she weighing in, and ultimately did you go the direction that she also wanted to go?
Yeah, there were, of our group of players that we were looking at with that second pick, she threw out 2 names that she would be comfortable with, Andre and one other player. And the strategy would change slightly if we took the other player versus Andre. And so ultimately, as we kind of thought about her positioning on it, that carried a ton of weight for us. I mean, she knows these players, knows their games certainly better than I do. I mean, I'm still learning this whole pickleball space. So that comes with a lot of weight for me. My job is to put together the best team possible. And again, like I said earlier, some of that's going to be on the court. A lot of that's going to be in just human dynamics. And so, we felt strongly that Andre was the right pick there. And, Anna certainly didn't disagree. And like I said, was one of the 2 names that she threw out there. So yeah, I mean, she essentially made that pick with my support as well.
Okay.
So then you get to the 3rd round, and it's an obvious choice, in my opinion, to go with Zayn Navratil. I think he's one of the steals of the draft. The place I have the biggest question for you, and I think everybody else too, obviously that one spot, the 1st round with Anna, but the 4th round, you go with almost I will say not unknown entity, but a way lesser known entity. You know what you're getting in Anna. You know how important the female side of things are. And in premier level, if you're stuck with who you got, if things don't pan out accordingly. Anna talked about on her podcast this week, the somewhat risk of going with a player like Rachel Rohrbacher, but clearly you're a smart man. You run an MBA franchise as well. What is it? What do you know about Rachel Rohrbacher that we don't, and why was this the right choice? Because it wasn't clear. It sounded like from Anna, there was a lot of different opinions in that 4th selection, not a ton of options either. So why go with a player that's lesser known than, say, a Susanna Barr or a Jillian Braverman and Megan Fudge, even throw in Vivian Glosman, another name in that list that people were speculating why Anna didn't go with her in the 4th.
So I think Vivian went right before our pick. I could be mistaken. I'm pretty sure we took the last female on the board with Rachel. No, it's a fair question. We traded. I think we were the first team in NLP history, which I take great pride in, trading off of all 4 of our picks. Clearly, I didn't love where we were picking.
Well,
Um,
let's talk about that quick before we get into all the Rachel stuff. Second trade. Uh, well, the for you, so you trade your third and fourth position, your 27th and 46th for 34 and 39. Was that trade made also with Zayn in mind?
uh, he was definitely, again, how we approach things from a tiering standpoint. We felt confident, and this decision was, I will say, was really driven by Anna and Andre. Again, as soon as we got Andre, we got him on the line, and explored what we do from third and fourth round standpoint, and with both he and Anna, weighing in, and they felt strongly in trying to trade back to more of the middle of the third round. I think we ended up a little bit further back than anyone of us would have liked in the third round. Ultimately, Zayn was there, which was, again, totally agree, incredible value for us at that pick. Um, with the thinking, depending on how the third round played out, that we'd then be moving up in the fourth round to hopefully round out the team with a solid female. Um, again, you never know how exactly it's going to all play out. I'm very pleased with how it did, but that's kind of the risk reward of it is, and especially in a snake draft, trying to move back because again, we felt strong in the quality of the male we were going to be getting in the third round, regardless of if it was, a few positions back from where we were originally picking, to try and move up in the fourth to solidify with a female. And I think too, especially with Anna and her ability to cover a lot of court, play the left side, be very aggressive. We needed a female that could certainly play with her, but somebody she didn't playing the right side with her is going to be easier because she is that good, and so I think that's going to be as we kind of theorized around it, that'd be helpful. But we obviously wanted to find best value there. So I mean, I guess to answer your Rachel question, which is that where you want to go back to, I'm more than happy to jump in there too.
But because she was 39, according to the MLP. Run it back. Rachel was selected in the fourth round at 39 and Vivian Glassman 42. But in my opinion, Vivian's also unproven. It's not like she's that much more proven than Rohrbacher. A little bit more in MLP, but I don't know. To me, that Rachel Rohrbacher, to me, when I looked at the draft, was the biggest surprise.
Michelle, you're making Ryan doubt what
No,
he's
I
already
don't.
locked
Oh
into.
no, not at all.
You
No,
have
I'm
to
not.
take risks. You have to take risks
I'm not
when you're
doubting it whatsoever.
right?
What
I just looked at because I mean
remind me
I
what?
called one of her PPA matches. And I'm like, she's a up and comer, but I mean, of course, you have months to come. I'm not saying it's a bad pick. You're either going to look like a genius or
No,
you're going to be
I'm
stuck with somebody that can't handle the pressure. And I love this. I love the gutsy call. I do.
no. I mean, I felt that we had such a solid team there. Sure, there were safer picks, right? Susanna would have been a safer pick. Um, yeah, I mean, we're certainly swinging for the fences a little bit there, but I think that's some of what the MLP format, kind of breeds is, I think it's good, right? Bringing
Yeah.
in new players who have something to prove. Um, but I think you need to find a value in that fourth round. That's not just going to be a safe player, somebody that is, ultimately moves up and in next draft is picked in the first or second round, right? That's what we're hoping Rachel will be. She obviously has a pretty phenomenal tennis background and a lot of success there. So have to imagine she's and I've had conversations with her, and I mean, I hope there's a bit of a chip on her shoulder that everybody's kind of thinking this way about her, and that she's out there to prove everybody wrong. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's definitely a risk, but we're positioned just in terms of premier to challenger standings.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of needed to swing a little bit.
Yeah.
I'd rather go out swinging than try and hit just singles along the way.
Yeah, then just barely miss.
To be clear, Tyson,
Yeah.
I'm not hating on the pick. I think it's a good pick. I just think that, and to your point, D1 athlete, tennis background, she's got a lot of upside, and if she's training with Anna Bright, why not? But also, Zayn
Yep.
and Anna both made good points on their podcast this week. if you look back at the history of MLP, and I think you brought this up too, Ryan, every winning team had a fourth player that was like somewhat of a lesser known and so had something to prove. Paris Todd, if you go back to the earlier history of it, you have even Megan Dazan, I would say, like at a right, those type of players that were, of course, you have Ben Johns that helps, but they say that that fourth slot is, to your point, an opportunity to bring in somebody that's rising to the occasion. The biggest thing for me is the pressure filled moments in MLP. They're not like any other situation. So, I mean, but she's a D1 athlete.
No, I
so
can't. I mean, yeah. I mean, I have to imagine she's, used to and prepared for that. I can't exactly imagine the pressure those athletes feel out there on the court. I mean, I feel it sitting on the sidelines, and I'm not doing anything. So it's definitely, I mean, it's a high pressure thing. But yeah, I mean, I think with the right team chemistry, hopefully that pressure is lessened a little bit, and everybody's kind of able to rally around. These players are going to have highs and lows. It's human nature, right? And so if we can stay together as a cohesive group, that's ultimately what's going to kind of be able to grind out those wins.
Why was Zayn still available in the third there? Like, how did you get away with getting Zayn Navratil in the third round?
Some luck, some good karma. I'm not sure.
I think the performance of his team last season.
The Frisco Pandas.
Exactly.
The Frisco Pandas, but you still, right? But you look at his ratings.
That's what I was going to say.
He's still highly rated player. His skills are still there. He just was on this team that could not perform. And then you ended, like, to me too, like I look at this team and I'm like, Zayn as the third, like that's a steal. How much did the first three picks, like, was there any scenario where in that number you weren't picking Rachel? Did getting Zayn make any impact on picking up Rachel or anything like that? Or was that a non-factor?
It was, it was a conversation between myself and two members on my team. And then, our three players, we are all kind of kicking it around, and there were a few names that we threw around as potential fits. Ultimately, like I said, decided to swing for the fences a little bit instead of playing more of the safe kind of Susanna route. I believe strongly in, a group that's going to get along, and there's not anybody who brings that down. So we didn't go other routes we could have gone. And, we felt that, Rachel had the upside that we were looking for. Somebody who could, and I mean, Michelle, you said it, being able to go and train with Anna and Andre, being down here in Orlando, not in Orlando, but in Florida. I mean, they've already shown their leadership by raising their hand and saying, Rachel, come on down whenever. We'll train with you. We'll get you ready to go. So that's what I'm looking for from this team. And they've already, I mean, in day one, they delivered that.
I wonder if she has the ability of, like, Anna Bright did it in short amount of time, right? We saw her, what was it, like 3 months it took her? So, I mean, Rachel's at the pro level already, I mean, further along. So I think it's going to shape out well for you. What was,
I'm hoping.
I guess,
here's hoping.
Here's hoping. I mean, yeah. So where the Orlando Squeeze are positioned at the moment in the league standings, where, if you're doing the math, where do you, well, I don't know if you want to put it out there like this, but as far as that communication with your team of, like, where you need to finish in order to make it to premier level in 2024, how are you approaching those kind of conversations?
Yeah, I mean, they know and understand where we need to be as an organization. I mean, we need to go out and be gunning to win events. I think making it out of groups will be helpful consistently, and that's certainly going to get us points, but, we need to be advancing. So that's where some of the swing comes in. They get that as a group, and hopefully it's kind of the funkiness of this first season. So much changeover in players and no real, I don't want to say loyalty to organizations, because, in my opinion, that's earned over time. But this is a new group who, I haven't met any of them in person. And so, it's going to take a little bit of time to kind of build that up and get going. But, hopefully we'll treat them right, and they'll want to help go out and perform, and, find all the upside for them they can, and we'll be along for the ride.
Yeah, I'm looking at the standings here. You're currently in 18th overall with all the teams. You need to be in the top 12 to advance to premier level in 2024. And I'm not like a genius mathematician, but I understand the basics of math. 12th is 21 points, which I have to assume then if you want to be in the top 12 at the end of 2023, you probably need to have like 42, 45 points, I'm assuming, to be safe, mid 40s. And currently you have 15. So you definitely need to win.
Yep.
Right? So, like,
no pressure.
No pressure. Is this the pep talk you gave your players?
Yes. Man, Tyson, we got to bring you out and just get them fired up. You definitely have to win.
Nobody gets fired up.
Huddle up. Mathematically. Mathematically.
Yeah. Math pumps you up. I'm telling you. Math is pumping me up. But
were these part of your discussions in the like player interview process of like, if you play for us, did you?
Not really. I mean, our questions were pretty easy for these players. I believe, they're playing at this level for a reason, right? They're good at playing pickleball. I wanted to more understand who they are as people and what they bring outside of just on the court, and what kind of leadership attributes or, team attributes they're able to bring. And so it was, it was pretty straightforward, but really just trying to get to know them as people first and foremost.
What were you asking? Are you not revealing your?
Ooh, should we do a role play here?
Yeah. Would we be suitable?
It wasn't anything exciting, really. It was just kind of free flowing conversation, with some random questions peppered in. But
we got some,
there was
challenger
not like
level guys. We got a bunch of people that are going to be listening and wondering what these questions are going to be. Just give us some examples, Ryan. Yeah. Like I'm Rachel, and I'm like, fingers crossed I'm going to go in this in the premier level, and I get a call from Orlando Squeeze. Like, what are you asking? Because there's not a lot of time there between you calling and having some conversations and having to make a decision. So
so I will say we didn't have conversations. Our out picks, 2, 3, 4. I didn't chat with any of them pre.
Oh, okay.
It was more of a, reliance on our first pick to kind of speak into the player side of it. I wish I had the time to talk with everybody in the draft pool. That just gets really complicated.
Do you think anybody did that?
I'd be very surprised. I'd be very surprised. Good on them. Good on them if they did. I will say, I think that's where this thing is going, right? More resources being put towards team building, put towards scouting, trying to find the, fingers crossed, the Rachel Rohrbachers of the world who come out of nowhere and are able to change team dynamics. So I do think it's moving there. I don't think we're there yet, but it's moving there. To answer your question on questions, a lot of it was, for our top picks, or top pick considerations, I guess, was really just around their experience in, the first half of the season, what they saw as being kind of the winning factors, winning components of this format. Some of it was feeling out, who they would want to play with to potentially have an understanding of, if they go, who they would be looking at picking up. in kind of the, second, third, fourth rounds. So a little information gathering in that regard. Yeah, and then just a lot of, kind of how they view themselves from a leadership standpoint, what they think they bring to the table, what we think they bring to the table, being able to kind of compare and contrast that from a personality standpoint. Yeah, that was kind of how ultimately the conversations went.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, I like it. I think uh and we've heard it before, like there's something to be said for chemistry, not just a duper rating, not just a skill number and level. And it's how all of those skill numbers and levels work with each other in a team.
Yep.
And there is some argument. We've had people on who are like, I'm only building the highest skilled team. Uh, and like that team didn't
But
win
who's
this
to say
time.
what's the highest skill, right?
Yeah. What
Like,
is the highest skill?
there's
Is the That's
that's
true.
not it. I don't think that works in this format. I
Yeah.
mean, the highest skill, and I mean, we probably would have taken Joe Braverman with our fourth pick, but that's not, that's not necessarily, that changes dynamics, right?
Right.
Um,
Mhm.
and so that's, skill is certainly a component. You don't want somebody who is so off the pace in terms of their ability. But again, there's not really that many people who you'd consider in kind of the premier level conversation, and even upper challenger level, that would be so far off the pace that in the right situation they'll be able to hopefully rise to the challenge and perform well above their kind of perceived skill level.
Yeah.
How has your experience or your family's experience owning obviously an MBA, predominant MBA franchise impacted your ability to see MLP, even with something like a draft? I would imagine your experience is invaluable compared to some of these other owners who don't have that luxury of having that kind of background. So, what are some of the parallels, and how did that impact your ability to see things maybe other teams couldn't see?
Yeah, I mean, I there are some things from a process standpoint that I kind of I've picked up from the Magic side that I brought over to our draft process. I'd be lying if I said I've again I only know so much about pickleball, and it's a lot. I would say probably a much smaller bit of information around pickleball than a lot of the owners in this group. Um, I think I fall back more on how do I build the best team, and how do I create a cohesive group, a high performing group. Um, and so, I think I was able to bring some of that to this conversation. Um, I wish I could say I see all these things that they don't see. That was very far from the truth. Um,
But if you
all,
win, you will be claiming that,
oh,
right?
exactly. I mean, you're going to cut this out, and we'll shoot a
Yeah,
new one.
yeah, we'll redo it. I had a dream, and from the get go,
Yeah,
yeah, I love it.
exactly, exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
Before we close and before we let you go, uh, lots of talk early on in 2023 about the strength of the Orlando Squeeze logo. I think far and above hailed as the greatest logo in Major League Pickleball.
I
What
would
went
have
into
to agree with
that?
you.
What went into that? Like how? How did that become created?
Yeah, so I mean, to add on to your earlier question too, I think some of the strengths we've been able to bring in have been less on the pickleball side and more on the kind of business branding, social, just kind of team building side of things off the court. That I think we've been able to establish a brand pretty quickly. I mean, we've been playing. We were one of the last two teams in the league. We picked up the team about 10 days before Mesa, and so I we didn't have a long time to put together a brand, put together a logo. So our character actually came from a little character that the Magic used on a 407 day, which is 407 is the area code down here in Orlando, on a 407 day T-shirt that I liked and ended up buying from the graphic designer, um, with no purpose other than I just liked the character and thought he'd be a cool feature in some brand down the road. When this pickleball opportunity came about, it's like, oh, this is a perfect use case for this character. So we worked with the same artist, tweaked it to be more pickleball specific. And that was kind of how we were able to pull together a pretty good brand in an incredibly short period of time. Um, yeah, I mean, that was kind of the birth of what we call Lil Squeezy.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, what is this character's name? There's a name. The way you've talked about this character, I knew there was a name, Little Squeezy.
Yep.
And how can people get their hands on some Little Squeezy?
OrlandoSqueeze.com. All of the merch is there.
Okay.
We a little peek behind the curtain. There will be a Lil Squeezy brought to life at the next Atlanta event.
Okay.
So he'll be wandering the event moving forward. So
Yes.
it's been a fun brand to build.
Yeah,
That's cool.
it's awesome. Ryan, thank you so much for your time. And we're super, super excited to see how the squeeze materializes over the next few months into the next event in Atlanta. And I have a good feeling, Ryan. I think, this Rachel thing is going to.
We're bringing you in for pep talks. So
Yeah, I'm ready. I thought I was going to be in the mascot costume. I'm a little squeezy, no?
Hey,
Is it designed for a 6'3" person?
I mean, I'm not 100% positive. I'll have to ask the team, but even just to walk around a little bit, we're more than happy to get you in there.
Okay,
That's awesome.
perfect.
Maybe a little, legs may be a little short, but that's all right.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Just
Make it look even
more
better.
room for me to show off my shoes. Okay, Ryan, thanks again so much. I love it. I love all the risks you took, and I think that it's super, super exciting, and it's a no lose. Like you're gonna win. I have some good
I
feelings
hope
here.
so.
Good vibes.
I hope so. Well, thank you both for the time. Really appreciate it. Great chatting.
Yeah. All right. Ryan was the guy I wanted to talk to as soon as I watched the draft happen. I was like, I got to get somebody from the squeeze on here to talk about this because there was so much movement. I can't even imagine how stressful that was to try and manage all of those moving parts. And I'm glad we got to hear about it. Michelle, before we shut this thing down, you again watched a record-breaking number of pickleball minutes, hours, days from the Denver PPA.
Yep.
Any hot takes?
Not as hot takes because there were so many people missing. I feel like from the draw, it was no Tyson McGuffin, no J.W. Johnson, no James Ignatowicz. I guess the hot take of the weekend would be that the Matt Wright, Dylan Frazier show could only last for so long. They end up getting fourth. So I feel bad for Matt Wright. He's so fun to watch. And he's such a good player too. But after the breakup, Taylor Swift was there. In Denver.
Singing songs and everything. Wow.
It just was kind of funny because it was like we were referencing "We are never, ever, ever getting back together." Me and Dave in the booth. We thought
so
it'd be
they're
funny
done. So they're done for sure.
Oh yeah, they're done. They're done. They're never getting back together like Taylor Swift style. But he and Dylan were fun to watch. They just fell short in the bronze medal match, which was surprising to me. The other one, our girl Irina Tereshchenko, she still got it at 40. She hit some incredible passing shots on Annalie Waters in the singles final.
Yep.
That was fun to watch. She almost took game one. She hasn't gotten a game off AL ever in her history and was so close, literally had it in the bag and just barely lost it at the end. And then Annalie Waters, when she gets started, she's done. So still got it at age 40. That's always impressive to me.
And
Lacey
their teammates
Schneeman,
coming up.
yeah, I know, which is interesting because they're two dominant players, but Irina still, I feel like to me is an alpha personality. You can't really tell. I mean, she's such a veteran of the sport. She's like and rightly so. Like, don't tell me what to do. So we'll see how that chemistry shakes out between those two, especially with a lot of voices on that team and influences. But Irena's she's such a team player in the MLP format that I don't think any of that stuff's gonna bother her. Lacey Schneeman, Ben
Yeah.
Johns, obviously sees the upside in her. She was in the finals with Vivian David, played a really good match. Well, game one was a little slow for them, but they played Anna Bright and Annalie Waters pretty close in the second. So there's the upside. She was the fourth round pick for the no, third round, excuse me. Third round pick for Chicago Slice.
Yeah.
Which was also an interesting. I mean, but I guess when you look at the females and who were left at that point in the draft, it makes sense. Her and Jessie, you need a more aggressive left side player. You know, Jesse's not going to miss, so I do see his logic there. I guess the biggest surprise would be Eric Lang, but Ben Johns was dominant as always. Another triple crown for them, and I don't think anyone this year is going to be able to beat Annalie or Ben Johns in the mixed doubles partnership. They're just too good. So that's all I got.
Yeah. Well, my hot take is that a lot of pro pickleball players do not thrive at altitude.
Oh, it's so brutal. I played there. I can't. I don't blame them. I don't blame them. I would not play in this tournament either.
I'm from Utah. That's my advantage to play at altitude.
I hate it. I hate it. The Utah players for sure have an advantage. I will never play you in altitude. I sucked. And I'm not a pro, obviously, but it's brutal. You are absolutely right. The third shot drops are abysmal. Everything's popping up. The ball's flying. It literally looks like some of these, maybe not pros, but it literally looks like you hit a shot and you're like, well, that went 10 feet out of bounds. Don't know how that happened.
I mean, I'm not used to that because I do play here in Arizona, and I do like the air. It's crazy that the air thickness, quality, humidity can all have effect on your shot because of the ball. So, but I did see a lot of pros complaining about the altitude, and I was like, well, part of being a pro.
That was actually one on my list. I'm glad you said that. I forgot to mention
the altitude.
Altitude sucks. Third shot drops, impossible.
Yeah, then you just got to drive. You'd like to drive it more anyways.
I know, but then they sail out of bounds.
So
I need a better paddle to dial it in. So if anyone is looking to sponsor me with a paddle sponsorship, let me know.
Okay.
I'll post more, I promise.
Perfect.
Thanks
all right, Michelle.
Thanks for my TED Talk, everybody.
Yeah, I'm here for it. We got to get you a better paddle, and Orlando Squeeze making moves, and PPA keep those pros out of altitude. Until next week, Michelle. Paddle taps.
Bye. Paddle taps.